is, if you go to testoper.eventbrite.com, which the link, just a minute, I just want to make sure that I'm saying the right link. Yeah, so it's testoper.eventbrite.com. If you go to that link, you would see the list of programs that we provide is available there. So one of the program is an intelligent automation codeathon, which is happening today. Initially, it was planned to happen bi-weekly. The number of hours was like 2 hours, 15 minutes, right? 15 minutes for logistics and 2 hours for the session. Now, what we decided is we felt that instead of 2 hours doing it bi-weekly, we wanted to do this weekly and reduce the number of hours to 1 hour. 1 hour, 15 minutes. 15 minutes is logistics, anything that's required, Q&A and stuff like that, right? So starting this week, this session is going to be just 1 hour between 10:30 to 11:30 and 11:45, right? 1 hour and 15 minutes, like I mentioned. And it's going to be every week. I want to make sure that you understand it's going to be every week and you are joining next week as well, right? Just make a note of it. And then in the Eventbrite, you will also see another second program that we are doing right now, which is ongoing, which is going to start on July 17th. And that is called Test Automation Track. So anybody who's interested in learning test automation, like web, mobile, API, and work on some test automation related open source activities, we are starting the program starting June 17th, and that program is going to be on Wednesday evening 7 to 8 p.m. Okay. Right now we are doing a beginner's track 7 to 8 p.m. and it will complete before June 17th. And June 17th onwards, every week, 1 hour, we are going to continue with that test automation track. So that's your second program. And then the last one, the third program is, we are working on it. It's more or less finalized, but you would actually see there is going to be a meetup coming up in June 20th. The topic would be cloud automation and AI with cybersecurity. And it will kind of help you to understand the overall picture of cybersecurity market and job trends and the technology aspect of it, right? So if you are interested, please feel free to kind of join that session as well. As you know, all these sessions are more or less free, and we basically try to help you as a community to become a creative talent. That's the 3 key messages I wanted to give. Having said that, I will hand over the floor to Krishna. Krishna, it's all yours. And make sure, Krishna, in between, because people are continuing to join, right? So make sure in between, maybe after 30 minutes or 40 minutes, take a break. Either you can say or you ask me to say. I will repeat the same thing again to make sure that they understand. I want to make sure next week they are attending, right? Otherwise, they will miss next week. We are transitioning from bi-weekly to weekly.
Absolutely. Yes. Let me do that.
Over to you, Krishna.
Okay. Thank you, Kadir. So good morning, all. Thanks for attending the session. So as Kadir mentioned, we made this program into a weekly program versus bi-weekly. One of the reasons being we want to go, one of the feedback we also received is a lot of these participants want to go very deep into each and every topic. So that's the reason we went into 1 week. So which means the content would be reduced in terms of what the topics we cover. And also you also get an opportunity to ask more questions, and we'll be digging deep on very specific areas within the Azure fundamentals. So today the focus is we're going to talk about we're going to start networking before we go into creating virtual machines and things like that. Networking is the fundamental fabric where these virtual machines reside. So on that networking, we're going to look at 2 key topics. The first one is called the domain and name service and the virtual network. I think Kadir covered this earlier. I also covered this one. The duration of the class will be 1 hour and 15 minutes for questions. So it's not going to be like first hour class and 50 minutes question. We will be having a break in between, so you also have an opportunity to ask questions. And again, as I previously mentioned, we're going to cover the topics much deeper. I just want to touch base on the past week reviews. I think this is our third session. The first two sessions we introduced the participants to Azure, what is all Azure is all about, the costing model, CapEx, OpEx, those related to costing, as well as we also get introduction on automation, how do you automate services, and we had a deep dive in Azure Kubernetes service. So if you have any, all these sessions are recorded, and we also provide you with the content that we share during the sessions. Please feel free to review as well as post any questions you might have. So from starting this week, we will look at networking. So let's start with the session today. Within the network, today's module is going to cover very extremely key topic. So the first topic it's called the Azure DNS, and the second one is called the Azure networking. We'll be looking at subnetting, which basically splitting your big network into smaller subnets. So we'll look into that. So in terms of DNS, if anytime we create a resource on Azure, the first thing that Azure is going to do is provide a name for that particular resource in question. So how the name is assigned is through a service called it's a DNS. So basically, DNS basically is called domain name service. What happens is every time a resource is created, Azure would go and assign a name for it using this particular service. And if you look at, I just shared a link on this on the PowerPoint. One of the reasons why Azure started introducing this DNS services. Usually, DNS service used to reside outside of the public cloud. So from day one, Microsoft, when we hosted Azure, DNS was part and core and parcel of the system because the way the cloud is operating. The DNS is one of the key service. If you see the availability or the quality of performance of DNS, it's number one in the world because every single resource that's ever get created on Azure needs to use the service. So most of the questions you would ask, usually have other domain registrars, a lot of them. One of the questions always asked is why I can't use the third-party domain naming services. You can still do it, but one of the key advantage of using the naming DNS services within Azure is it's built into the fabric. When you say built into the fabric, it's natively available within Azure. And then it also does one other thing as well. You can use the naming service both within Azure, outside of Azure. If you have services sitting on-prem, you can also do that. And any services sitting on Azure, you can also do the same services. And we also give you two types of DNS service, which is the public and the private. So everything is a single place of management, and also it makes from things easier. If you have large scale, if you have a lot of deployments of Azure resources, it's one place to manage. I will show a quick demo of this very shortly. In Azure, there are three ways of name resolution for resources in a virtual network. The first is called the private zones. So as the name indicates, you can host a domain naming service in your private zone, which means it's only available through that particular network in question. The second option is Azure also provides its own name resolution. In this scenario, is it's not within it's across Azure, not only specific to your deployment. It's across Azure. The third one, which most of the large enterprises uses, most customers would bring their own DNS service, which is sitting on premises. So the reason a lot of customers do that is DNS has been in existence since the time network has in existence. So just for the fact, and also a lot of customers want to manage how a resource name is created. So just for that key reason, customers will have their own DNS, and they usually keep the DNS on premises. And in Azure, you can connect your on-premises DNS to the Azure resources. I'll just quickly jump into the Azure portal to show you guys how this this particular DNS going to look like. So this is a simple virtual network. So this virtual network will have subnets and all. So whenever you create a virtual network, the first one of the options you can choose is either use an Azure provided DNS or your own custom DNS. In this example, I provided my own custom DNS through the private zones. So one of the key understanding that you should have in this case is, depending on your use case, you can either choose the Azure provided DNS service or the custom DNS service based on your use case. Sometimes you can mix and match depending on your workloads. Sometimes you can have a Azure provided DNS or the custom DNS. That's also use cases for that as well. So in summary, the name of the resources in Azure comes through the DNS service. Especially for services which are residing on a virtual network, users have a choice of choosing an out-of-the-box DNS service provided by Azure or the custom DNS service. If you're using a PaaS, platform as a service resources, then Azure is the one that is going to give the name. You don't have any ability to go and override it. I'll come to it shortly. I think the two key concepts here to take away from this is the way Azure DNS is offering two choices, private and public DNS, depending on, and also your custom DNS. Based on that, you can decide to use whichever is convenient for you. Are you, Kadir, are you able to see the screen or no?
Yes, we can, Krishna.
Yes, yep. Okay. So I'll go into my slide deck now. Let me go into some. One of the key feature within the one question most of the time people ask is, why should I even use my own private DNS? One of the reasons is performance. So there are situations where you can still use your on-premises DNS if you're a large enterprise, but there are situations where you might need, you think, what, I don't want to use my outside DNS services. I want to use my my own internal DNS service. Then in that case, you can go and create your own private DNS. In that scenario, private DNS supports which is the IPv4 IP addresses, quadruple A, which is IPv6 addresses, CNAME, colloquial name, MX, which is your mail, and then the pointer records, and startup authority, and also ownership record by TXT. So I've given a very simple script. What I'll do is I will go and deploy this particular service. In the once I finish the class, you also get access to the scripts. Let me go and showcase you all how to create the private DNS. In Azure, one of the key feature is you can run your command, your CLI or bash using the Cloud Shell. So all I'm doing here is I'm opening up my CLI and I'm going to execute the shell. Let's do this.
Krishna, are you working on the terminal too, or you don't see the terminal?
You don't see the terminal?
No.
Okay, let me see. Looks like it. Can you see now?
Yes, yes.
Okay, I think looks like okay. So what you're doing here is I'm going to create Something's not at this. I'll come back to the script shortly. I need to break. I'll check it. What
It has
happened?
a space, Krishna. It has a new line character in the first one.
Oh, Mr. Ahmed, you're here.
Yes, I am.
This one, right? On the create.
Yes. So just yeah, keep this line and copy the rest of it. Should be fine.
Okay. Fair enough. Okay, thanks for joining the session, man.
No problem. Welcome. Thanks to Kader and Adasha for inviting me. Glad to be here.
Oh, I need to install CLI, isn't it? I don't have CL on it. So one of the things I should do is install the CLI. So I'll come back to this after I configure it. In summary, what will happen is when you create this private DNS zone, so all you're going to get is something very similar to this. And then you can go and create your own record sets, as I explained to you guys earlier. The record sets could be 8, quadruple ASC name, and things like that. So one advantage of doing this is performance, and also another thing is this private DNS is only available for your individual network. It's not available for the external ones. If you want to use Azure DNS, then it's available for other users within Azure itself. If you use custom DNS, then it's only available for your specific enterprise. So there are 3 choices, as I explained earlier. So let me go in and discuss the other ones as well. There are a couple of best practices why Azure provide the DNS service. The first one is it's pretty much infrastructure as a code, which means it's as I showcased earlier, it's available through the PowerShell, the CLI, as well as automation. And you can also monitor the DNS servers using Traffic Manager, NetWatcher, and also external tools as well. So this is one of the key advantage within Azure itself, where it has got ability to manage. One other key point I also want to showcase, because this is we call as a first-class resource. It has got all the fundamentals of the Azure in terms of it has got logging, it's got role-based access control. Which means this can be accessed through only authorized users with certain privileges. You can also have tagging, and it's got because it's a first-class resource, it's got all the other Azure attributes, which is traditionally available for the resources. That helps to manage it. And the last point I want to mention is we also have a feature within Azure. It's called the run commands. In a situation where you have resources that needs to be updated, you can use the run command within virtual machines to do any updates to the services that got deployed. So if you go on this one, depending on the machine, you can always choose to use So using the PowerShell, we can also use to run the update or anything like that. So that gives you one more. There's nothing to do with the DNS, but if you ever need to have update any sort of DNS services or configurations, we can do that as well. So this is a quick overview on the private DNS as well as public DNS as well as the your own custom DNS. I'll open the floor for any questions that you want to know, or the things that you want me to cover. Let me know. Are there any questions on the chat window, guys?
So I'm tracking WhatsApp because some of them are not able to send questions. So one of the question is, Amazon also uses own DNS service. Does Amazon also uses its own DNS service? That's one of the question. It is from Ajit Sadashivan.
Yes. Yes, it does. It does more. See, every cloud vendor will have their own DNS service. If you take out Google, it's got 888, the 4 8s, quadruple 8. So yes, every service.
The context behind my question was because it was not listed in the comparison that sheet.
Sorry, which comparison? I didn't get that. Can you explain?
Because you showed a comparison where Azure DNS was on the top, then GoDaddy and things like that, but Azure was not listed. Sorry, AWS was not listed.
So which means the service or that's basically on the quality of the DNS service. So which means if they are less than certain threshold, they won't be listed on the top.
Oh, okay.
So that's like basically the listing is about the high quality DNS services. Most of the time you will see things like Cloudflare, you will see Google's. Now from in terms of quality, Azure DNS is on the top of this one. That's why it's not listed. It should be definitely there. It should be definitely. They also have public cloud. It should be part of the list.
Okay, thank you.
So I don't think any other questions come through, Kadir, right? Okay. If not, then I will go into my networking. So the reason I want to start with the networking side of things to start the CIDR is most of you guys who know or girls who know there are 4 types of classes: Class A, Class B, Class C, D, and E. So in Azure, there are 2 types of Azure supports RFC 1918, which is the 10 dot, 172 dot, and 192 dot for the IP addresses, but you can always give other IP addresses as well. The notation that we use within Azure is called the CIDR notation, which is a industry standard. So when you create a virtual network, one of the key information that you have to provide is the CIDR range. I will show that to you guys very shortly. So basically, you can define your network range using that. And also one other advantage is one other thing you always do is you also slice your subnet based on your needs. So I'll cover that very shortly. So, and also another thing I also want to mention is in terms of the IP, you might know the supportability. We support both TCP and UDP type of traffic. And also other thing I also want to mention is depending on the workload, some systems would use TCP, some systems would use UDP. It doesn't matter in terms of what we support. So we support both of these standards anyways. One of the key things when you're deciding a network is you have to decide what you're going to host within a virtual network. And the second point is you have to make sure when you build a network, there is no conflicts between these networks in terms of IP ranges. Other third point is you need to understand the number of tiers that you're going to host. Now, whether you're going to host an application tier, web tier, or database tier. And also there are other key things. Resiliency is one way you should also look at. If you have, because one of the key point about network is, so these are data center or region specific, especially in Azure, Canada Central, Canada East, there is also dependency on that, and also availability zones. Depending on, so there are a couple of considerations when you're deciding the network. These are the 3 key considerations you have to take into effect. That's one thing. Other thing is within Azure, there are certain prefixes, there are certain things that which is not available to you. So basically, if you take /32, usually is for single IP, it's used for the firewalls. So The smallest subnet size you can have is /29 with 3 usable addresses. There are certain considerations when you use a VPN gateway. I'll give you the whole list for you guys to review and see, because some of these things you cannot override. So depending on how we're going to use it, you need to define your network accordingly there. The one key point I want to mention is there are certain IP addresses which is not allowed. The first one, the most important one of all, the whole lot is it's 168.63.129.16/32. That's the internal DNS. So every time we create a virtual machine, that's where the virtual machine will have that by default. You cannot change it. So that's one of those addresses, but also the multicast, the broadcast, and the loopback. These are also not available for customers to use it. And one other key point you'll also to understand is every time you create a virtual network, 5 IP addresses are taken over by Microsoft, which means the first would be the network address would be reserved for it. The second one is an IP address will be reserved for the default gateway. The third one, the 2 and 3 would be for the Azure to map DNS IP address to the next network space. The last one, the 255, is the network broadcast address. So by default, all these 5 addresses will be taken away by Microsoft. So it means you need to take into consideration if you're building a smaller network, you need to consider these IP addresses would be allocated by Microsoft for its own use. The next one I want to talk about is basically how to split the network. Before that, I really want to go and showcase how to create a network on Azure. It won't take long. I'll go into my portal and then show it to you guys. Okay. To create a resource, you go to virtual network and then you click create. For our sample, let's do a new test VNet for software. VNet for that's a new resource group I created. Inside that, I'll use I call it a test VNet. And then you have to pick the region up, and then all you do is you click and create. That's it. The network is right now it's created. Let's give a couple of minutes. As I was showing guys earlier, it created a resource group, and it also created it took the largest space, which is last 16, and that's about it. So in that, what we can actually do is I was showing guys about DNS server. In this scenario, the default DNS servers for this virtual network is provided by Azure. There's no custom DNS. If you want to do custom DNS, you need to select the custom DNS and change that. In this case, you're going to keep it as it is. And I just want to quickly run down through that. Activity logs. Every time any resource that gets created, all the activities that are happening on this particular network is captured. And because network is a first-class resource, it's got a role-based access control. It can also have tagging enabled. And this is the one. In this scenario, it's this particular space is taken. Also, one other thing you can also do is you can also use a single network can have multiple other side ranges too, depending on how you want to do. So in this case, there's a sample there. So it doesn't matter how many ranges you can use that. And one of the key pointers, we will talk about the subnet spacing. So in this case, by default, it gives you a default subnet, but you can also have additional subnets based on your use case. Every network comes with a basic DDoS protection, And if you want to go into advanced level, you can click on the standard DDoS protection. And also one other feature we introduced for the networks is attaching a firewall. So in this case, you can create additional firewall for this to be attached to the network. And also Azure has got a feature called Azure Security Center. When you enable on this particular network, it's going to constantly monitor. Azure Security Center is enabled for most all the resources by default, the basic option, but you can always go and have additional things. We quickly look to the DNS servers, and peering is basically it's connecting two different networks. So let's say you have two networks and you want these networks to be connected, you can use VNet peering. Service endpoints are a feature within Azure. There are some couple of Azure platform as a service services like SQL databases, Cosmos, storage. In those scenarios, these services have a public endpoint, and you don't want the system to use a public endpoint, but you rather want to use a private access to it. In that scenario, you will end up connecting with the service endpoints. And the private endpoints are a new addition within Azure, where even the platform as a service services, which tend to have a public IP, using private endpoint, you can directly route the traffic to the services using Azure backbone. And there's also logs, which means logs also helps you to, if you can go into this, you can always have different types of logs. Sometimes there are two types of logs. One is read-only, which means you can, nobody can edit it. It's basically uneditable. It's the resource becomes a read-only resource. And the second option is delete, which means when you lock a resource on delete, pretty much you cannot delete the resources as well. Diagnostic settings means you can enable diagnostic settings, which means from a troubleshooting perspective, you can capture different types of metrics from the virtual network resource. And by default, we can always, we recommend customers to enable logging. And also one other key feature is if you have other issues, you can always log a ticket against this particular resource using the native ticket system. And for resources which already have connections and virtual machines, if you click on the diagram, you can actually go and look at what are the resources underneath that. That's one of the cool features I like within Azure itself. I will show you one of the machines which we have created earlier, and then I'll show you the diagram of that. It will be very good to see as well. So this is the source. If we go into the network, as you can see, it's giving you a full all the resources that are connected. It's in the graphical form. So that's the quick overview of the Azure virtual networks. If you have any questions, anything that you want to discuss. Okay. So at this point, that's a good question.
There is
yep.
So you're looking at the question. It's from Partha Kaushik.
Okay. So in this case, we availability zones, a subnet has to reside within the same, I would say, region. But if you need to, maybe you need to, yes, you're right. In this case, you need a NAT or other technologies to expand it across the this one. Availability zones are not available in Canada at this point in time. In other regions available. So yeah, you need to have some sort of a mechanism to expand it. Ahmed, you want to add something to it? Ahmed is I work with Ahmed quite extensively. He is one of the best networking guys. I'm going to put him on spot and ask a question. Ahmed Har, are you there, man?
Yeah, hey Krishna.
So one of the questions: how do you span the network, into the availability zones?
I believe the VNS would be spanning the availability zones, but the subnets should probably live in a single one.
Yep.
But your load balancers, for example, can work cross subnets, cross availability zones. So you would have access to multiple.
Okay, so that's a question. That's a response to you, Partha. So next one, I will just quickly go into. Let me go into this. I have a very simple use case, So let's say one of the things when you design networks, the subnet design is a very key activity that you'll do, because when you, as you can see, a single virtual network is a huge range, especially when you're having workloads. What you end up doing is you split them into multiple smaller subnets. In this case, traditionally what end up happening is there will be multiple layers where you might have a DMZ zone where it's going to be exposed to the external world, and you might have a front-end web server where the web servers would be there to receive the traffic, and you have business, which is the application layer, and also the backend databases where the database tier, and also most of the time you end up having some spare resources. So this is how you can split the network. There are a lot of tools available. Mostly it's something related to Excel and things like that, where you can actually helps you to split the networks into smaller chunks. And also another thing is, especially in large enterprises, they tend to use IP management tools, which helps them to keep track of all the IP addresses and also which one is getting used. So one of the example I want to give is I want to go and create a network using custom DNS and Azure DNS step by step. Hopefully this time it works without any major challenges. Let's go. And all these scripts are available for participant to test it. Once after this one, I'll host that into the Git repo we have for Desktopper, and then it helps you to get an opportunity to go and try it. Let's use PowerShell. These scripts are very simple. As long as you follow the steps step by step, you should be able to do that. If you're a beginner, if you don't want to, don't want to use the UI, please, I always suggest you guys give it a try. So I'm going to just cancel it. Let me check. Give me a second, guys.
Joy, you are typing your question in the meetup chat. You should type your question in the Codeathon chat.
Oh, okay, Kader.
As a step one, I'll come to Joy's question shortly. I'm creating a very simple resource group. So as we see in the first lesson, resource group is the single, think about it as a container where all the resources that will be hosted. So what I will do is I'll use the same resource group for the future lessons as well. So as and when we build machines and things like that, this is going to be available for you guys to test it. So let's go and check out whether this resource group, I do see the resource group is created. Let's go and check. Let's see. Yeah, but I'm not even seeing 23, right? I created resource got 23. I don't see that here. Let's see what's happening here. Let me go and create a new one. I just don't know I don't know what's happening here. The portal is not displaying the previous one. Let's see. It's saying it succeeded. Let's go and check. I know what's going on here. Let me get to the previous one. It also did other one. I'll get back to you guys shortly on this because the resource group definitely it's got created. It's in Central US. I'm going to go ahead and create the other ones. Maybe it takes a few minutes to update.
Krishna, can we list all the resource groups from here using the like command shell?
Yes, we can.
Yeah,
we can.
Let's see there if we have it.
So let me finish the first exercise. Maybe I'll give you a few
Good
minutes.
name. Please identify the name and ask, please.
Hi, this is Sonali.
Sonali.
Hey, Sonali, 1 second. You know what? Let me finish this so that I will come back to you guys shortly. So I created a resource and then I'm going to use in this case, I'm creating a new network. Let's see what the network is created here. It did successfully create. The only challenge I've done is it's the same name, so maybe I should have. Let's see. I'm not sure why it's not displaying the one which I have, so I need to just look into it. But the concept here is basically once you, the first one would, in this scenario, the first sample that we have would create a resource group, which is called the test resource group 444, and a virtual network is created inside that with the particular DNS. So I'll go and create the second one, and then I'll come back and see what's going on here. Something is not right in terms of the portal update. So let me try another one. I'll do another one called, 5555. So let's create another resource group. Maybe I'll use a different name here. I'll use called sample, and then I'll copy the code. And then I'll do a different region, East US, to see if that makes any difference. Let me clean up. It's succeeded the group. Let me see whether what it is called sample. Something doesn't look right, but looks to me the portal is not updated, but the PowerShell seems to be it's updated. So let's go with the flow, and then let's create the network. Sample. And then I'll change the region to East US. So this time over, I'm going to use my own Azure DNS. So I'm going to use the Azure DNS, and then Sonali had a question, right? What was the question? You wanted somebody, Kader, who was typing the question? They wanted to get some answers.
Yeah, Joy was asking. It was more relevant to, her question is, can you please give us an example of a question that may appear on the certification exam based on the whatever? It's kind of disconnected.
Okay, so So I think on this session, we're going too deep in terms of the networking, things like that. Especially on when you go on especially AZ 900, one of the questions they will ask is, what type of, what is RFC 1918, whether Azure would support that sort of thing, whether it's possible, whether you have option to use custom DNS, or whether you have options to use Azure DNS. So those are the similar questions coming. AZ 900 as an exam, it's quite entry level. So those are if you want, I will share a couple of sample questions in the next, after the session, so that you can have, it's not the questions from the actual exam, but it's mostly like the type of potential questions on it. So we are going deeper. Most of the time, AZ 900 is very simple. They will ask you whether it's possible to have subnets within a virtual network, what type of DNS services customers can use. Those are the very entry-level questions there.
And Krishna, maybe, we have another 7 or 8 sessions on this cloud before we start training the community on intelligent automation, on AI, right? So one of the session, maybe what we can do is we can kind of explain them about different certifications, what qualification, what kind of questions, because I have seen a lot of people asking about how can I get certified with Microsoft Azure, right? So maybe it's worth spending some time around that.
I will definitely do that. Adasha is the one that can help me with that. So is Adasha also online?
No, he had another call. He jumped into another call.
Okay.
But yeah, I'll also touch bases with him.
Okay. So I think definitely that we can do a separate sessions on this, specifically on the certificate exams and stuff like that. Some of the topics we cover usually covers into the deeper AZ 300 exams, but yeah, definitely we can go through it. So I need to find out what's happening with the portal updates. So Sonali, let me
go back to your screen, like, if you don't mind.
Yes.
Yeah, can we list down the resource groups here on the PowerShell?
I do, but I don't know.
I know the command for the command shell, not really PowerShell. Okay, the command for the shell is AZ group list. Yeah, and we can format it into output
table.
You
like see here, that's a good thing, right? Yeah, you can. It's definitely it's created. You see the sample group by 5. But for some reason, I'm not able to see that.
Krishna, Ahmed, can you go to the resource groups on the portal and just click the refresh within the resource groups there? So there's a refresh button there. Can you try to click that? If it helps. Did you click it?
Yeah, I did. I couldn't see anything. So it looks like the backend is updated.
Very stupid what I'm saying, but does space matter? Like in the portal, I see East space US, and you have given East US. Like
no, in the command.
Okay.
You know what? I will do that. Let me do that. The simplest of the things should work, right? But doesn't. Today is not the day it looks like. Let me log into the portal again, into the Learn Cloud. Let me go to resource groups. Nothing at all. So you know what? I think at this point in time, I'll go back to my slideware. But I think as we saw, definitely the resources did get created in the backend, but the portal maybe I'll get back to you guys, and over the next session I'll explain to you what happened. So let us go back into the AZ group.
We're in the right account, right? Like you have 2 accounts.
Absolutely, yes.
One is Learn Cloud and the other was something Outlook, like some test open. So
no, this is the one. So this is the one. As you can see, the sample group that we created. Yeah. It's listed here. So you know what? I wouldn't go deep into it, but at least in summary, let me go back to the slide. The last one I want to mention is it's about this. Every time e-tags, one of the things you'll always find is every resource that in Azure will always have is called e-tag. The reason I'm doing that is anytime a resource get updated, e-tag is like the key that will stop if 2 people are trying to update the same record. using ETAG, the conflicts are resolved. So I thought it'd be interesting to know. I think in summary, there are two key lessons I want you guys to take away from today's session is, in terms of the DNS, Azure gives you three choices of DNS. The private DNS, when you want to resolve within your network. We also have Azure provided DNS service, which is across all Azure resources. You don't have any control over in terms of how the naming works, but it's still available for the service. It's highly available service. And the third one is a custom DNS option where you can bring in your own DNS service. For example, some customers have on-prem. If you want info blocks on the cloud, you can do that. That's one thing. And we also looked into virtual networks. So basically, virtual networks are the where it plays a couple of key roles. For example, it will help you to host resources within a given virtual network, and also virtual network provides you a very strong boundary, which means you can control the traffic that's coming in, going out of the virtual network, and also you can host resources within the virtual network, like virtual machines, some of the PaaS services like CLMI, and also you can also connect your PaaS services, for example, Cosmos DB, SQL, and other PaaS services into the virtual network using a secure connection called service endpoints. And also one other aspects of the virtual network is you can mimic your on-premises network into the cloud with similar CSI, CIDR ranges and things like that. And one other functionality which virtual network also plays is it helps you to connect your on-premises using secure connectivity like Express.and VPN gateways and things like that. So I think we covered two key topics on this particular one. We also looked into into a little bit of PowerShell as well as CLI. And then what we'll do is, at least on the next week session, I will start with by creating a virtual machine that will attach to the virtual network. You can I also create another virtual machine which is attached to a private DNS. You will see the difference on this one. I think there are some few hiccups and back and forth on the portal and things like that. Hopefully next week we'll make that clear. The sample code is available for you to go and play with it. I will send it through the GitHub we have. I think this is a summary of the session today. If you have any questions, thanks Sonali and Ahmed for helping me out here. Thanks you guys. So
no, we couldn't solve it. So what is the thanks for? Let's
no,
solve
it's okay. We will figure it out. I mean, I'll
there is a possible issue here, Krishna. We can try one thing if you want.
See, if you go back to the fundamentals, right, guys? I mean, the Testoper Codeathon is defined as something that community experts train the community members, right? So whoever are the experts here have to come in and train. And Sonali is thanks for stepping up. Yep. And again, Ahmed, thanks for stepping up. Great session as usual. What we have to do is we normally send a reminder email before the session. What happened was there was some tool issue we had last week, and there was some spam created. So we did not send a reminder email today, but we'll make sure that we will send that reminder email. And a couple of points like Krishna mentioned, this program moving forward is going to be weekly program, 1 hour, right? It's short and sweet, but it's going to have a continuous engagement. And make sure that after and before program, you continue to engage. As I always kindly request you, continue to engage in the Microsoft Teams. We have a great platform and we should make a benefit out of that platform that we have. I know that, this program is going to continue for next 7 to 8 weeks, I believe, right?
Yep.
Krishna?
So,
right?
yeah, we will go deep on every topic and then work through like a live session like this.
Awesome. Can I have a question?
Yes, please.
Yes, please.
This is actually on integrating applications, Active Directory authentication.
Yep.
So typically, if you look at, say for example, web applications, for example, Krishna was mentioning front end, app server, and the back end. Yep. So there are different ways. For example, a lot of the applications use a single sign-on.
Yep.
So yeah, so some of the recent technologies, for example, there is something called ADFS, Active Directory Federation Service.
Yep.
So we can also authenticate or do a single sign-on with the Azure Active Directory. So can somebody kind of explain like where ADFS and where Azure AD will fit in?
Definitely, yeah. So I think it's on the network. It's not on the networking side, but identity side. Active Directory Federation service is basically, think about a service that will be on that is used to synchronize or federate your different Active Directory services. For example, most of the time ADFS is used on the cloud to synchronize between on-prem. And also one other thing, and within Azure itself, customers usually host their Azure AD connected to the on-prem through the ADFS, and all the I wouldn't say the passwords, the usernames are synchronized, and then you can attach that AD type access to the Azure resources. There's a session which I'm going to host on this in the next 2-3 weeks, specifically focusing on the particular on the AD integration. While since you asked the question, I quickly want to showcase something here. So let's say I have a virtual machine, okay? Within the virtual machine, you have options to connect your virtual machine into an Active Directory at the time of creation or after the creation or process. So if you look at identity here, so here you have an option where you can go and attach this machine either through a user assigned control, or you can go and do a system assigned control. So that's where the AD integration comes into play here. I can go deeper into that in the next couple of sessions. If you watch out for the, I think maybe in about 2-3 weeks, I'll go and touch base on it. Short answer to the question is, as you can see, Azure AD is directly integrated with the resources that are created on Azure on pretty much in every single resource, and that's where the role-based access control plays a major role, where based on your AD groups, our role-based access control can be assigned for individual resources, and it includes every type of resources like virtual machine, network, both from authentication and authorization purposes as well.
So does it mean the ADFS is the piece that synchronizes Azure AD with the on-premise?
Yes, you can have that as well. Yes, there are other technologies as well, but you can always do that as well.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Most customers would use multiple options here. ADFS is one of the technologies, yes.
I saw some additional questions coming in. I'm
yes.
not sure. Please close the Testoper GitHub URL here.
Close.
Okay. Oh, someone already answered that. That's good. Awesome, awesome. So again, I wanted to thank Ahmed. Ahmed, thanks for joining and supporting us. Continue supporting us, and everyone in the call. Again, thanks for taking time and joining today. Please do refer to your friends to come and take benefit from this program. And we are planning by end of the session. We are working out some legal aspects of it, but then by end of the session, after the cloud introduction is complete, maybe we'll give from the Testoper point of view a certification for those who have attendance more than 80% throughout the program, right? So that's something that we are working on. Just FYI. The last point is go to Eventbrite. There's a couple of more programs starting. One in June 17th for the test automation. One in June 20th meetup. Register yourself, and I'm looking forward to your continuous support. Refer your friends, and have a great day today and weekend. It seems to be our first weekend with good weather, but unfortunately we are locked at home. But try your best to have some fun and walk around and refresh yourself. All right. So with that, Krishna, I'll hand over it to you for the final closing. If you want to answer anything.
I think I think you know what, one of the things I always suggest, if you have any questions, if you have feedback, you should please don't hesitate. And you also have something to share to the community, like like Ahmed or Sonali, as well as please share it. I think the main thing is the feedback is very important. If you think we should have done better on this, please let us know. We learn as a community, as Kader said, right? So looking forward to working with you guys next week. Stay safe, and thanks to all.
Yeah. Thank you very, very much.
Krishna,
you.
I just sorry,
Yes, go ahead.
sorry.
Go ahead.
Yes.
I just have one question about this the Azure portal registration and the charges. Like right now, I'm using the sandbox that comes out of free, but I was checking that they say after 30 days, the $250 US credit expires and you have to upgrade your account and then you will be charged based on this upgrade subscription. Like how much do they really charge?
It depends on the resource, right? So, for example, one of the things, kindly don't quote me on this one.
No.
It depends on the virtual machines that resources that you create. Virtual network doesn't cost you anything, but logging does, So there's also there is also an entire bunch of 25 free services. I will send the note after this where there's no charges for that. It's available for 12 months if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, but they say that after 30 days you will be upgraded, and this $250 is only available for 30 days. Like, I mean, that's less if you want
I'll
to.
check with my buddy on this one is Mr. Adarsha. I'll check with him, and then let me see what's happening there.
Never mind. I'll just post the question directly to him then.
Yep, you know Adarsha, right? So he's
I'll
a community lead. So
yeah.
So he's very active in the Testocore community. So you can post it there. He will definitely respond personally.
Yeah, sure. Thanks.
Thank you, guys. As Father said, it's very nice and sunny. It doesn't happen always. But thank you, guys. Hopefully next week our portal is back up and running. But thank you all. Have a nice week ahead.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks. Bye-bye.